why AI pilots die.
And we talk about this all the time, the balance between technology and human. If no one owns the outcomes, the tools will drift and they will die.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tier 4 Tech Talks. And I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Robert Bouchard, our Chief Digital Officer here at Tier4 Group. I'm your co-host, Jonathan Palombo, Marketing Manager here at Tier4 Group. And hey, man, how are you doing?
Episode 3.
Episode 3.
It's time.
Yeah, it's time.
Just what everyone wants to hear. More talk about AI.
Don't think you can escape it these days.
Hey, but before we start, just wanted to thank everyone who's reached out to us. It's been very complimentary on episodes 1 and 2. If you haven't already, please make sure that you like and subscribe. We're going to continue to put out more content around recruitment technology, recruitment automation, using AI in recruitment over the course of the next several months. So be sure to stay in touch with us and check out more content on our channel.
Yeah, smash that subscribe button.
Smash it.
And nothing like a good plug.
No.
So today's topic, as you alluded to, has to do with AI. And today we're talking about what we're calling the adoption cliff.
Yes.
Why AI pilots die, or I should say where AI pilots go to die, right?
Where they go to die.
Yeah. And I kind of want to open up with this interesting statistic. So Deloitte pointed out that orgs scale fewer than 30% of AI pilots.
Yeah.
So it's clear that a lot of organizations, a lot of teams are trying to implement AI platforms and workflows and agents, but they don't come to fruition.
Yeah.
Something breaks along the way. So let's talk a little bit about the problem. And Rob, I want to lean into your experience here.
Yeah.
Where are you seeing the challenge?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Most don't become day-to-day work. And if we go back to a lot of what we've been told about creating more capacity, more efficiency, removing mundane administrative tasks, I think we're seeing that a lot of what was sold hasn't really necessarily come to be reality. And in a study last year of 450 plus enterprises, only 27% moved generative AI from testing to real world application.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not talking about edge cases here, John. We're talking about over 450 enterprises, and only 27% of those moved generative AI. Now, we're not talking about adaptive or cognitive. We're talking about generative AI from testing into real implementation. So I think when you take that data and you couple it with the Deloitte research that shows that fewer than 30% only are pilots or only scale past pilots, pilots are everywhere. And I think about the scale that's being impacted is rare across enterprises right now. It's not a technology problem, I don't believe. I think it's more of an operating problem. And what I mean by that is that there's this initial excitement that happens after demos. We may see some early wins after implementation, but over the long haul, you start to see utilization rates drop. And it's almost like a quiet quitting that happens amongst the organization, amongst the employees. And we talked a lot about what that is. And we're not resisting change more so than we're surviving complexity. And that's going to be a theme of our tech talks here. As leaders, what happens is we take that change resistance and we think it's an employee issue, but reality is it's a design or process failure.
Yeah. Well, I think the main question is not whether the AI works. And we're not just talking about implementing people using ChatGPT or something. These are, integrated platforms and capabilities that transform workflows and processes. It's not the fact that AI doesn't work. It's a question of whether the organization in question can actually adopt it. Does it actually work and plug into their processes, into their operation in a way that makes sense? And I'm not sure a lot of organizations look at it from that angle. Maybe that's kind of where the root problem is. How can an organization, in your opinion, check the boxes to make sure that, if they're going to do an AI demo and they're going to see this, shiny tool that could make some problems go away, how do we make sure that tool is actually a fit? Is there like a checklist? It's kind of like dating. Like, do we match?
Well, I think it's a couple of aspects that are very important. The first is a demo is only a demo. It isn't true capabilities.
Sure.
Here's what we know that you want to see.
Right.
And I think when we look at how we buy slow, we have extensive use cases and we test those demos across use cases over the life cycle, the buying life cycle. And then we want to empower and engage other parts of our organization. And I think about our recruiting team and our sales team and our ops team. And it comes down to if we truly want adoption and we want it to be earned, we need buy in. I don't need your approval, John, but I need your buy in that you're going to be committed to the tool that we're going to invest in. And when we look at how implementations work, when you put a new tool into an environment, there is that excitement at the beginning. Some of it may be fear, but after 90 days, we've seen a pretty significant drop off in utilization. And then there's a bounce that happens. And the bounce gets that utilization back on the upward path. But when we look at our technology as a whole across all of our tools that we have, right now we're hovering at around a 40% utilization rate. And that may seem low, but I think the industry tells us that utilization is lower than 30% for technologies and tools that are put in place across the enterprises. And so I think that leads into why a traditional approach fails. And in a survey of over 200 talent acquisition professionals, 53%, John, cited data privacy and security as the top barrier to AI adoption. Privacy, security, governance. I think those are things that really now, when we look at AI adoption rates and utilization, they're very much top of mind. And what I love about this statistic is that it's not just a specific age demographic, it's literally spanning the entire workforce.
I think it's interesting you bring that up, those three things, because I'm just thinking about, audience listening to this, there might be different, depending on the size of an organization. That study that you mentioned earlier, 450 enterprises.
Yes.
Those are large organizations are seeing this issue. Do these challenges that we're seeing in adoption and AI pilots, is it the same across all industry sizes, or do smaller organizations have an easier time adopting AI, or is this consistent?
That's a tough question. When you're asking me that, I thought about AI literacy for employees. I don't think it matters about the organizational size. I think it matters about your employees' AI literacy level or their ability to be AI orchestrators. And that curiosity is what's going to drive sort of the next evolution in technology is individuals that are truly AI literate, that understand the tools that are disposable, but then understand how to layer that into successful workflows and processes. And when I think about where the pilot approach fails is a lot of times it's measured by just licenses and not necessarily usage. And it's layered into these broken workflows. And there's really no ownership that's put on or accountability around the governance. And so I think that's where these trust gaps get created. And I think that's why when you look at the survey of the talent acquisition professionals, where 53% say that top barrier is data and privacy security, it's a trust issue. And so to circumvent that, it has to start at the leadership level. And the leaders have to be bought in. They have to prove their AI literacy to the greater good of the team. And once that starts to happen, I think more excitement starts to surround the new tool or the new shiny object that's put into the environment. And when I think about how we measure success, a lot of times we're measuring success the wrong way. And it isn't about the amount of licenses that we have or the amount of individual employees that can access that technology. It truly is about the utilization.
Yeah, I think it goes back to ROI.
It does. But that ROI is in two or three different shapes and forms. It's capacity time, it's productivity efficiency, and then it truly is, it's a monetary return. How do we measure that? And I think when we think about less than half, 41% define what good AI actually looks like. So four out of every 10. So when adoption starts to drop, we as leaders take that quiet quitting or that silence as resistance. And I think that's a challenge, because if we truly ask the right questions, what's preventing you? Tell me how, tell me why. We get into the root cause of what recruiters themselves would say, which is these trust issues continue to come up. Something doesn't feel right. I'm concerned about data and privacy. I'm concerned about governance. I'm concerned about
Yeah.
bias. And so these are true barriers. And the resistance is a signal. And we've got to be listening to that signal, because that means that the way that the AI was designed didn't fit the workflow and didn't earn the trust of our team.
Yeah. And sometimes it can feel like these tools might, if you can't trust it, it just creates more work because you need to verify it, or you feel like you need to do that. So if there's any inclination, I think, amongst somebody who's using AI, because I think we all have this understanding or just this feeling that AI is going to magically reduce our workload.
Yeah, it's no
Which
magic wand.
it's just not always true. And of course, some of that comes back to, I think, if this is an AI tool, how is that actually designed into your workflow rather than just like shoved into it?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Forced into it, right? And sometimes that in of itself does not work. So if you get any kind of inclination that AI is not saving you time, then you're less likely to use it because you feel like you've got a learning curve. And learning curves are sometimes a shutoff to people.
They are.
You know, if I have to spend time
I'm just not going to do that.
Right. And it's just easier to kind of do what you've always been doing. And I think that oftentimes leads to lower adoption rates.
It does. So I want to give everyone the secret sauce if you're still with us.
All right. Secret
now.
Sauce time. Okay. This is what you stick around for.
This is the
This is why
formula
you're here.
of success when we look at how to increase our adoption.
Sounds good, Rob. Lay it on us.
So it's a defined workflow times trust times accountability equals adoption. So
Boom.
Workflow times trust times accountability equals adoption. And the reason for that is we want to remove work before adding intelligence. So we want to create that efficiency, that capacity, remove that administrative, mundane, repetitive. We want to define what remains human. And we talk about this all the time, balance, the balance between technology and human.
Yeah.
It's critical in adoption.
You need both, right, to be successful. And we've talked about this before, especially even in our previous episode, we talked about candidate fraud. You can't just rely strictly on AI tools or background checks and all these other things to make. You need human discernment. I mean, our recruiters have literally caught candidate fraud.
That's right.
That got past even our guardrails.
That's right.
But that's part of why we have such a low exposure rate, is because we have humans who are trained to actually spot the fraud. So again, this kind of goes back to what we're talking about here. You need humans in the loop.
It does. And then that AI behavior has to be tied to a very clear outcome. So as I was talking earlier about multiple use cases, this is part of that outcome that it's tied back to.
Defined outcome.
So if readiness across your team is low, or they're not in the right place to embrace or adopt a new tool, a new technology, a new automation, a new process, the stall will happen in the system outcome. And Rand cites that only 14% of organizations feel fully ready to integrate AI.
Interesting.
So that's a pretty staggering number when you think about your question earlier about, is it small, medium, large size organizations?
Right.
I think this goes across the entire spectrum of organizations, of companies here domestically, when only 14% of organizations say they are actually ready for AI. The stall isn't surprising when we think about organizations like us who are really trying to push out front and be on the leading edge of it. I think it's expected to have resistance.
Yeah. Actually, I like that you bring up this idea of readiness. I want to kind of ponder that for a minute. When you're going through a demo with a company, right? You're trying on something and seeing if it's a fit. Is that something that you think often comes up in conversations around that tool when you're talking? Like, I guess what I'm getting at is I feel like the level of readiness you need for varying platforms and AI tools can vary. So is that something that you can actually partner with whoever's providing that service or that tool? Is that something that they can assist with, or is that something you should really try to help leverage them to help gauge?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it comes back to multiple touches throughout the buying journey, the buying life cycle.
Right.
When you see the platform first, it has to provide a solution. If not, it's just a piece of software and it's just going to create technical debt in our environment. Utilization will be low. We'll spend money on licensing and never really create a significant return. Whereas to your question, if we're truly working with a organization that is a true partner, a true solution provider that knows and has identified gaps in the market and can help us solve those, then I believe they become more consultative when you identify what your use cases are. What is our business problem? What's the solutions that we're trying to implement? And then how do we work through that? That's not going to be solved in one 30-minute demo with all the shiny bells and whistles, because
No, yeah.
I've been guilty of chasing the latest and greatest. And when you do that, you realize that the latest and greatest today, in a matter of a few weeks, is not going to be the latest
It
and
changes so
greatest.
fast.
It does. And so
Yeah.
that's where you've got to have the right partner. And I think
Mm.
to really button that piece up, having multiple individuals involved in the life cycle that can ask questions, that can get a feel for what is the problem we're trying to solve to produce that outcome, and then you have a consensus on your decision. I think that makes it easier.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, having a plan, right?
Mhm.
And having a strategy. And I think you definitely, if you're listening to this and you're maybe looking at different AI tools and doing demos and trying to solution with a partner, bring them in.
Yep.
Like, allow them to be consultative and make sure they meet you where you are, because you might not be where you need to be in order for that launch to be as successful as you want it to be.
That's right.
You're probably on the right track. I think it's just an adjustment.
It is. It's an adjustment. And so I think when we look at the operating model, the secret sauce, if AI doesn't remove real work, it'll feel like overhead.
Yeah.
Something that's just weighing in on us.
It's a burden. It becomes
It's
a burden, right?
A burden. If users don't trust the outputs, they will reject, double check, and find every reason not to for everything. And then last, if no one owns the outcomes, the tools will drift and they will die.
Like we said, they fall off the cliff.
They do. Right?
The cliff.
The deep end.
Right into the deep end, never to be seen again. Yeah. So, you think one of the most common reasons that pilots die and they walk off this proverbial cliff, how much of it do you think is misplacement, misalignment?
I think it's more misplacement than it is capability. And we've talked about systems and process and gaps and outcomes, like all of the things that are involved, but the misplacement, it's put in the wrong part of the process, the wrong step in the process, or it's overgeneralized and it's too big. It's too much of a burden. So getting that right, that placement piece is really tough, John. And I think what we do is we ask AI to do work that requires judgment, and we underuse it where execution should be repeatable. We want AI to be decision support. We don't want AI to be decision authority.
Yeah, I think here at Tier4 Group, that's one of the things we've done well when it comes to AI adoption is we've very well defined AI's role in our processes.
Yeah.
And I kind of actually want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think it'd just be good to give maybe a real world example of how we've adopted AI. And can you share a bit of an example, just a real world of what this might look like?
Yeah, so we've been very upfront about our implementation of a digital recruiter in our environment. Her name is Taylor. The landing page for
Taylor's
Taylor.
awesome.
Yeah, Taylor's awesome.
Check her out. Go to tier4group.com/Taylor.
Yeah,
Super simple.
Taylor.
/Taylor.
Right,
Yeah.
But like many organizations, we are combating a high volume of inbound applications. 38% of those inbound applications, as we talked about on the last episode, we've marked as fraud, fake, fraudulent, or misrepresentation. So we have to have a mechanism to screen through the noise. The average human recruiter can only look at anywhere between 150 to 350 profiles in a day. And I say 350, that's on the extreme high end of the fastest of the fast. Most are in the 175 to 200 range. So in order for us to identify the most qualified candidates, not necessarily for the job they applied for, but for others, requires a screening process. It requires an evaluation. AI literacy, as we've talked about, is super important for us as an organization. And I think when we look at preps that are starting to happen for interview preps, all of these things are starting to be controlled by AI, generative, agentic, cognitive. But when we look at our use case and what happened is we identified a way for us to go through the 2,000 to 3,000 inbound resumes we receive on a monthly basis through automation and intelligence. And what that's done is created a significant return in quality, in our speed to submit, in our submit to interview, in our interview to hire ratios. So we've given back recruiters more time to do the things that they want to do, which is have conversations with qualified candidates. Their ability to create influence, their ability to build relationships through trust, rapport, and commonality, their ability to have empathy is where we want to find that gap. So what we identified as a digital employee, a digital recruiter, was that path to resistance for lowest path to resistance for us.
So I just want to ask a quick follow-up question. What breaks when AI enters workflows?
I think trust. And I think a lot of that is because we as humans want to trust other humans first. The whole idea of having conversational, professional discussions with a bot, with a digital recruiter, I think is still relatively new. Although our data tells us that 85% of the interviews that we've completed with Taylor grade the process 4 out of 5 or higher. 85%.
Yeah, I think there was some early, what would be the word? It was new,
Mhm.
and you really weren't
I think it's
sure.
hesitation. Probably the
Hesitation.
word you're looking
And
for.
we still get, there was another word, but it just won't come to me. But it was a novelty.
Yeah.
It was novel, right? It was
Yep.
just people had not done it before. I think for many candidates, it was like their first time ever probably doing that. And so we had a pretty good inflow to our company email box. We
Yeah.
had a lot of emails coming in saying, "Hey, just want to check to see, is this legit? Like, I got
Right.
this email. Is from Taylor. I don't know who Taylor is. Is this real?" And we're like, "Yeah, it's real. It's Taylor, digital recruiter. Say hi." And so we still get a few of those, a
Not as
lot
many.
less.
Well, yeah, because when we put it in place,
Yeah.
February of 2025 it was new.
We were trend setting. Yeah, like you said, we're not an observer. I think there's different levels of adoption with AI, and I think there's those who lead the way and they adopt tools when
Yeah.
they're pretty relatively new and they kind of work out the kinks. And then there's organizations that are going to sit back and observe and say, "Well, let's see how this plays out. Okay,
That's
we
right.
see this." And then there are the complete opposite side
Yeah.
of the spectrum where they just
Laggards.
do not do it. We're like, we don't believe in it. I
Right.
don't want it. Don't want to touch that. It's just not going to stick around. Just a fad. And obviously, we're on the far end of that spectrum where we're leading the way and trying to innovate, and that's just really a part of who we are. But I think as these things take time, as time goes on, it becomes a part of the workflow
Mhm.
where you don't even really think of it the same way. It's just a part of the process,
It
and it
is.
does what it does. It does its job. You work out the kinks. Not to say that it's easy, and I think we can attest that sometimes there's ups and downs, ebbs and flows when it comes to AI adoption. But if you do it right, you're intentional, you're diligent, you collaborate and get buy-in. You listen, get feedback, you iterate, you work with your partner to consult and to make adjustments. I think if you put in the necessary time and you have the right people in place, it's going to work out.
That's right.
It's going to work out.
Well, again, I think trust is the key.
So I have a thought on that. What actually builds trust in AI outputs, though?
Yeah, this is the big one. So it's transparency, it's guardrails, it's also the human boundaries have to be clearly defined we know they're part of that transparency, part of those guardrails, clear human boundaries. And I think that's what will convert usage into confidence and earn that trust. I also believe that it has to be engineered. Trust has to be engineered. It's not something that can be requested. I'm asking you to believe in me. We have to help them understand the why, the outcome that it's going to create. And you've heard me say this a lot. It's purpose over novelty, clearly defined purpose, clearly defined use case, purpose over novelty. And then another theme, adoption is going to be earned. If you try to enforce it, there will be resistance.
If you try to enforce it, there
Mhm.
will be resistance.
That's right.
I think that's a critical takeaway.
Mhm.
And I want to kind of bring things here to a close. And
Yep.
we've talked a lot about AI and adoption and AI pilots. Let's talk to someone first who's actually at the decision making table.
Yep.
What's your advice to them when it comes to driving a successful AI pilot that actually lasts?
Start small. Start small. Make sure you have a team, a small team that you know is going to give you honest feedback. that is going to help you understand where it fits into the workflow and where it doesn't. You have to be ready and vulnerable to take on the criticism that this isn't the right fit for our environment. Most of the time, you're going to see if you select the right pilot teams, an early adopter, a middle of the road, a laggard, you get the right pilot in place, you're going to get the right feedback. And then from there, you're going to understand if it's worth making a longer term commitment to or not.
All right, now let's look at the person who's maybe on a team who's being given a new tool that they are going to adapt to try to improve their workflow or
Yeah.
their day to day. What would you say to them?
Be curious.
Simple.
And the reason why is you've got to understand the evolution of technology, not only in recruiting, but across enterprises. It is evolving extremely fast. But there are things that we are going to do that aren't going to work. And there's going to be things that we're going to do that are going to work really well. But the more that you're curious about continuing to find ways to improve or make suggestions or squeaky wheel, as we call it, the better that technology is going to get. And John, you've heard me say this a lot right now today as we're recording this. This is the worst our tech stack will look like. It's only going to get better. It's going to be better tomorrow. It's going to be better next week. A month from now, it's going to be better.
You hope, right?
No hope. This is reality. It is
Yeah.
getting better.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah,
We're seeing it play out.
That would be the
before our
hope, I
eyes.
guess, if you're going into it, right?
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But,
I'm not going to make this investment and hope it fails.
Right. Of course not.
But if I'm sitting in a seat, I need to be curious because I need to make sure my AI literacy is growing and evolving.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause that's where the global society is going.
Well, I think I would just add on to that too, kind of piggybacking off of that. I would say if you're in the seat that you're trying, you're being asked to adopt an AI tool
Mhm.
or something into your workflow, lean on other people on your team.
That's right.
Find out you may not be the quickest to adopt, and you may not understand it as well as someone else on your team who's kind of getting it. And I think we need to keep an eye out for who is that person, because then they can kind of be the champion and they could help others on their team to learn and to help them understand the platform.
Yeah, that's that peer-led training.
Yeah,
We talked
peer-led
about
training.
the 4 pillars in training:
Mhm.
leadership-led, expert-led, peer-led, and individual-led.
Yeah, and there's
Self-taught.
going to be somebody on the team that gets it better than everyone else.
Right.
So find out who that is. Hopefully, they're willing to champion that
Yep.
and help others grow.
So I think the last thing I would say here as we close out the conversation is AI and AI pilots don't fail because it can't work. They fail because we don't design how the work is going to change.
Well, I think a lot of that work needs to happen before,
Yeah, it does
you know?
on the front end. Again, that comes back to clearly defined requirements, fully mapped out SOPs so that we have references.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I hope for anyone listening, we built a bridge over the proverbial cliff so that AI
Over it.
pilot will not die and that you'll be able to make it to the other side into AI pilot success. And I
Yes.
think what we really want to drive home is the adoption model that we laid out, which was workflow
Mhm.
times trust times accountability
Yep.
equals AI
Adoption.
pilot success and adoption. This is we've even discussed that you can see AI pilot adoption success early on, but it's really over the long haul whether we see true success or
That's
not.
right.
Yeah,
and
there's longevity to
I'd
it.
say if your pilot failed, you're in the majority. It's okay, but learn from it,
Yeah.
iterate from it,
Fail
and
forward.
Don't repeat it.
Yeah, don't repeat it. Absolutely. Well, Rob, I want to thank you for your time as always.
Sir. Episode 3. Hey, listen, if you have a topic or a subject that you would love for us to discuss and talk about, please drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.
Yep. And as always, we'd like to thank you for tuning in and listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye now.